strength, give us power, give us knowledge, and bless everyone that's here, Lord, and take us home safely. We thank you for everything. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Begin. Roll call, please.
Jack Baker,
Here.
Kara Callan Watt,
Bonnie.
Bill Anglin,
Here.
Bill John Baker,
Here.
Harley Buzzard,
Here.
Julia Coates,
Here.
Bradley Cobb, Joe Crittenden, Jody Fishenhoff, here, Meredith Fraley, Janelle Fulbright, here, Don Garvin, Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Here.
Hannah Glory Jordan,
Present.
Curtis Snell,
Here.
Chris Soap,
Here.
David Thornton.
Good.
We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Thank you. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the July 29th.
Motion so much.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll have our reports from our treasurer, Ms. Ketcher.
Good evening, or afternoon.
It is good evening. It seems the president, the former chair, the chair of the former committee, sort of likes to run over.
You have my written report if there's any questions. One thing I would like to add is follow up from last month. One was on vacancy report, which I've sent to Doug to review prior to sending it on to the full council. And a question about one of the modules we're updating in Lawson called position control. The go live date on that is September 26th.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Ketcher?
Oh, yes.
Ms. Fisher.
You took me a notice now. You can talk to me about that. I had talked to you about the sole source dollars
Yes.
and how many was going to Terrell and how many wasn't.
Yeah, and that's a manual process of going through each one. What time period? I mean, do you want this fiscal year? It's going to be a lengthy process to pull all those out because right now it's not noted in the system
Are you
anywhere.
all starting to note it in the system now that we're wanting it?
We will have to set up some extra codes. We'll get with Becky and Shelley and see how soon we could start putting that in.
How soon do you, give me a rough estimate, Kelly, because I've asked for this for the past 6 months.
On the sole source? I apologize because I thought last month was the first month. But let me talk with Becky and I will email you in the morning and get you an estimated date.
Okay, I got it. In our little book we get the unaudited one. It says in here the tribal government decreased $1.8 million primarily due to changes in the recording of the employee performance incentives and how it was done. My question is, how did it affect the services to the people? You know how you all turned around, instead of using the money the council set aside for the bonuses, you all made them pull it out of their own budgets?
Are you speaking about the 2010 budget?
Yes, this past year.
That was part of our budget mod that we submitted back in April or May. Remember when we had to reduce the budgets because of the anticipated revenue shortfall? We paid employee bonuses last October. No, I'm sorry. When were those bonuses paid? It was before Christmas, and I would guess that 99% of those came out of each department's own individual budgets. So the funding that was originally in the 2010 budget, when we went through the budget hearings, that was part of the whole balancing act when we had to reduce budgets because of revenue shortfalls.
Okay, I'm wanting to know that when we pulled it out of the budget, is there a way, maybe Doug needs to get on this, that shows like if, let's say Charlie Soap's group had to give out X amount of dollars, pull it out of their budget, and not use that money for services. I want to know how you all can tell me how much didn't go to services for the people because they pulled the bonus out of their budget versus taking the money out of what we set aside. Doug, could you kind of roll that around in your mind and come up with a way to...
I mean, I can poll the group leaders, but it's my understanding that, and this is what I instructed the group leaders, is that if you had sufficient dollars in your budget, pay it out of that, and if you run short, come to me and ask me to take a piece of it out of either the little bit that we left in the employee performance incentive budget, or we would ask for a budget mod if there were any funds available. That's such a subjective question, I don't see how you can,
Okay, Doug, well, you know kind of how I think. Why don't you handle it, City County? We'll find out this month.
Well, I think I can maybe give you a pretty good answer right now.
Okay.
There was a component to each payroll worksheet within the budget. So each budget that has salaries funded out of it has a component of the payroll side of that budget that's merit. Some of the 3% merit built into the budget process is also on vacant positions. If a department has any vacant positions, then as time progressed throughout the year, it absorbed the cost of those bonuses. Where I'm thinking from a perspective, if I'm managing a budget that's got people in it and I got to bear the burden of paying a unbudgeted bonus all of a sudden,
You can pull.
and I've got vacant positions in there, that's where it's going to be eventually absorbed, and I don't have to cut travel, supplies, or anything else like that.
right?
Is that,
Yes, I understand what you're saying. The reason I'm asking is right below it, it talked about community services expenditures decreased by about $600,000. And it was like self-help community water lines, a minor emergency repair. And that's what concerned me, because them are the things that my people look to the most.
some of those budgets don't have, those are direct service budgets, okay? They don't have employees in them anyway, so they wouldn't be affected by the.
Right.
Well, I realize they're not affected by that, but it said it decreased by $600,000.
Right, and part of that, when you're looking at a big project budget, that can strictly be timing on when the projects, how far they are progressed along in the process.
Okay, I got
We'd
it.
have to look at each individual project to see where we were year to year or versus budget.
Okay, I got another question. The Cherokee Nation Home Health Services, I'm looking at their activity report for April of fiscal year 10, and I'm looking at the employees total, and it has Cherokees out of 208, there's 106 of them that are Cherokee. Is there any Cherokee preference on that? Explain how that works on the Cherokee Nation Home Health.
Home health, I believe they follow the same preference guidelines that we do, but they are a separate corporation. I'll have to get with Rick Richards.
Could you please get with me, because that ain't 50%, that means 1 out of every 2 people might be Cherokee. I asked you about that one. Oh, since budget hearings are coming up.
Yeah, they're, most of the, Doug brought up a good point there, most of their funding does come from Medicare and Medicaid billings. They are a separate entity. It's not something that goes through our budget process.
That's why I was wanting you to explain that. I didn't know how that worked with Cherokee preference, since it is funded that way.
It is funded through Medicare, Medicaid billings, insurance billings.
Okay, budget hearings are coming up in the Cherokee Heritage Center because of the report that come out. Doug, in the meantime, between now and budget, can you kind of brief us or talk to me about that outside, about the Heritage Center? Just outside. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is the clinics in Hastings. And how Terrell applies to them, especially on equipment, oxygen, or medical equipment, any supplies they've got, because I've got calls from several Terrell vendors that says they just simply said, we're not going to do it, we're going with these people, and that's it. And my Terrell vendors are being shut out. And according to the executive order, they shouldn't have been shut out, and that executive order was in effect, I want to say we looked at it in February, and this is almost September.
Yeah, if there are some vendors who have specific complaints, I think those are supposed to go to the Terrell office, and we will investigate them. Everything that goes through our procurement office is subject to the same rules. So I would suggest that those vendors contact the Terrell office and exercise their right to file a complaint. A lot of times when we start looking into it, maybe they did bid or whatever, and they were not the low bid, but without specific facts, I can't answer
Okay,
that.
well, I'll talk to Diane about that when she comes up here. Diane, if you're back there.
Policies apply to everybody.
Have they been developed for the executive?
Yes, they've been developed, but they're not in final approval yet.
I think that might be a good key. I mean, the policies
pardon?
surrounding the executive order are being fine-tuned before implementation right now. So-
Well, basically, we're following,
Half a year.
we're following, to the best of our ability, the executive order. We do exercise Terrell preference in all of our bid documents. So, we are following the Terrell and the executive order. our policies have not been signed yet, so they're not official.
And I realize that ain't your fault, but I sit here and think that as a business person, that's half a year that I could have had money going to my pocket. And it really bothers me when you're out there trying to make payroll and pay yourself. And I realize that's not you, that'd be something I'll talk to Diane
Well,
and Chief about.
we know that it is my department because it's the procurement policies. And it's not like we're ignoring any of the executive order or any of the Taro law. All I'm saying is those policies are not final yet. The staff does make every attempt to follow Taro and the executive order to the best of their abilities.
And I think that's why the council should have put dates on it and limits. But that's the discussion for the council. And last month I also asked, and I think I asked it of you, and I think he was going to pass it on. I wanted a copy of our PAC committee, all the money that we give to politicians.
Yes.
That won, separated by the ones that lost.
Yes, and I did follow that, or forward that to Ginger Brown, and I think she was getting that list together. If you haven't gotten it, you should get it within a day or two.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Cantor? Thanks very much. Next are Cherokee Nation businesses. Sean Slayton for Mr. Stewart.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
I'll be reporting on June results for C&D and the other entities. On a consolidated basis, in June, there was net income of $6.9 million. We were utilizing about $26 million of our credit line at the end of June, and that has been reduced as of August down to about 22. Things are really going well at our other entities that are rolled up into this. And at C&E, we saw for the first time, not for the first time, but a trend that's started to continue in increasing our revenue. About a year ago in June was when the gaming market all across Oklahoma took a downturn, and it's been basically flat for about a year. But over the last few months of the spring and early summer, we've seen that trend reverse itself, and we were glad to see that. In fact, in July, we had one of our best months ever. They will be reporting on that next time. And then the trend in August has been not quite as strong as July, but still favorable compared to where it had been. At C&E, our revenue increased 8% over the prior June, but it was still 10% below budget. I think we corrected that in July. The construction at Catoosa is just about to wrap up. The event center opens next month. It's going to be a fantastic center for any kind of event that we might want to have related to entertainment. It's really pretty. West Siloam, as of the end of June, all 140 rooms were open and operational. Their first 26 days, they had a 60% occupancy, and it's just increased every month after that. The new casino opened in Ramona on May 28th, and it continues to outperform what we thought it would do, and we're very happy about that operation. We're employing about 3,500 people. As of June the 2nd, 46.8 were Cherokee citizens and 65.6 were Native Americans. C&I, they continue to show a great improvement over last year. Their June net income totaled $248,000. And year to date, for the 9 months ended June 30, they had a net income of $1.1 million, which is favorable by 2.4 over last year. A lot of good work there. They're now reporting up to CNB. A lot of activity around consolidation, system improvements, and things like that are going on, and really have enjoyed learning a lot about C&I over the past couple of weeks. So I think there's some good things that are really going to come from that. They have 71.1 Cherokee citizen employment and 81.2 Native American employment. Some of the exciting things out at our subs are the IT companies that we have. They're really doing well. And I think you're just going to continue to see some acquisitions in that area and things like that. We're working with Callie and Doug Evans to keep them in the loop on some of the future plans that we've got. That's my report. If there's some specific questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Are there any questions for Sean? Yes, Councilor Jordan.
Sean, I did forget to ask during this recess. I had asked David Stewart to provide us with all of the proposed 2011 budgets for all of the entities at the tribal council meeting, and he had indicated that he would get that to us, he thought, by August 24th. And I didn't know maybe if he didn't get that down in his notes and had forgot about it, but 24th came and went, and didn't see them, and we sure need to get them.
Okay.
And I could see in the minutes that were sent to us that you all had talked about it, I believe, at least one of the CMB meetings, and so I'm hopeful that you could get that to us.
We will. We had an executive committee meeting last week. The executive committee challenged us to do a little better in some of the budgets, so they went back to the individual entities. We had a board meeting on Tuesday. They weren't ready to go there, but they reported out that they're 95% good to go. They're going to try to finalize those this week and next week, and then once the board blesses those, then I'm sure they'll be ready to send right over.
I was really hopeful that we would be able to get them prior to our budget hearings, which are on the 8th of September.
Okay. I'll check on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sean? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next are Career Services, Ms. Kelly. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You have your report, and I think some of y'all probably have some questions, so I just want to give a report. I'll just answer the questions
Are there any questions for Diane?
before I sit down.
No questions for Diane?
Thank you.
Curtis.
Is your day's work program still in business?
Yes, it is. We are certifying on Mondays, and they are working Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then we do payouts every day if there is a need for it, and then some of them we do most of the payouts on Thursdays.
Okay.
Now, the two budgets are housing budget for those that qualify that live in Nahazda, and then there's also the tribal budget. So there's two different categories.
Councilor Hostin.
I withdraw, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Pitching.
Yes, I am. The clinics and Hastings and following Cherokee. You heard what I said to Callie. Could you check on some of that for me? Because I would like to, I think it's going to show at least 90% of the things are going to one company. 90% of the bids.
Okay. One of the things that we did, and I think I reported it last month, if I didn't, I'll clarify. The executive order was signed in February, and as Callie pointed out, they're still waiting to get their procedures approved. We did complete the training for C&E and all the business side last month. We are scheduling the tribal tarot businesses. We have not actually started certifying those businesses that are employing Cherokees. Larry's still sitting over here on the sidelines waiting to get that rolled out, and we can't roll it out until we get those procedures on the government side finished. So once the procedures are finished, then we'll roll all that out. But we're scheduling the tarot businesses after Labor Day.
Okay. Could you, because I know you get stuff done really quick, get with Callie about the sole source I was talking about to her earlier?
Yeah.
And see if you can help move them along? Okay.
Believe it or not, me and Callie have been talking about it. We have. We've been collaborating on it, and we were just waiting because there were some things that had to be tweaked. Because on the government side, the one thing you have to remember is that you got a lot of federal entities, and they had to check all those federal entities before they actually roll that piece out. Because you had the NAHASDA, you got DOL, you got HHS, and every one of those federal entities has specific wording. So that was one of the reasons why it's taking a little bit longer.
Okay. And then I had asked, I think last month, if the hiring of the investigator that we was talking about earlier in rules had followed, the hiring of him, Terrell was followed on it. And you was going to check on that for me at some time.
Okay.
Would you check on that?
Yes, I will.
And then I seen this in your book, it showed the 2005 and 2010 and the growth of the Terrell, or the certified NGO business.
Yes.
Can you send me one, Diane, that shows 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10?
2005.
Yeah, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, the growth that went up.
Yeah. Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
There was another report that you all had requested. I believe it was Councilman Buzzard. He'd asked for a pie chart on the revenue that's coming in from Terra. Deborah gave me that a while ago. She brought it over, and I looked at it, and I told her, I said, those figures are not right. She went back and calculated. She said they're not. So we'll just have to email it to you, Farley, because they made an error on it, and I can't give it to you until they correct it. But we'll just email it to you.
And I want to say, I was glad to see that all 100% of the bids was monitored by your Terrell staff. Thank you very much.
Yeah, John and his staff are doing a really good job. They're staying on top as much as they possibly can.
Thank you, Diane.
Councilor Jordan.
Yes, would you provide that report that you're going to give to Harley to everyone on the Terrell proceeds?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Diane?
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
I'm going to have to leave. I have EODD over in Muskogee, and John Overock will be here if there's any other questions. Oh, I do have one more thing. I want you to know the Administrative Appeals Committee is working. They saw their second case this week, and they upheld the Certification Committee on their recommendation. So it is working, and we have another one coming up next week. So just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Next is Commerce and a night.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You have a copy of my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Anna? Yes, Councilor Calvin Watts.
Want to make a comment. I mean, not that all departments don't do a really good job, but I've been impressed lately with comments, unsolicited comments from my constituents about the work you guys have been doing to help with the small business loans and work people through their ideas, especially our women that have, for whatever reason, there's been a high number of women I've been working with that have been trying to start stuff, and you guys have had open doors and candid dialogue with them, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Hannah? Councilor Jordan.
Do you have your group together now on your interdisciplinary?
We do.
So will they start hearing possibly some of the resubmissions?
They will on the one particular one. That one's been approved. We've notified them this week.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else for Hannah?
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much. And once again, I appreciate all of your indulgence in waiting for us. Next is we have our consent items. And there is a tab for the consent items and the Terrell certifications.
Move to approve
Do I
as
hear-
provided.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Cemetery restoration assistance applications, there were none during the last month. Law enforcement requests, there are none. And we have roads.
Mr. Chairman, there was an amendment to the road report. Mr. Hoskin has 2 projects coming out of all 3 funds. North-South 440, East-West 2400 Road, all of this year's allocations on motor fuels. Mr. Buzzard has South 660 Road Project Phase 2 for $25,000 out of motor vehicle tax. Mr. Hoskin also has out of motor vehicle tax Centralia Road Project Phase 4, and that same road, 440 Road, out of the bridge funding is requesting $12,050. And Mr. Snell has a drainage project out of that bridge fund for $774. And I think everyone should have a report that says amended. If you don't, I can do it.
I don't believe one was, no, there was a revision to that. Okay. Okay. Do I hear a motion for their approval?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Ask for one point of clarification from Doug.
Yes.
Doug, any of the funds that we still have in roads or bridges, that does flow over to the next year?
Yes.
So there's nothing that has to be zeroed out?
All three of those funds have historically, since they're all project-based capital appropriations, once we end the fiscal year, around the November, December timeframe, I'll get with Michael Lynn. We'll determine what obligations have hit the system or are going to hit the system that will actually be accrued back into this year. Once we know that, we'll know how much in fact carryover will roll into next year, and I'll submit a budget mod with him for the unobligated carryover of these three funds in the next fiscal year, in addition to next year's. Now remember, the vehicle tax fund, it comes in January anyway, because we have to know what the vehicle tax apportionment numbers are for roads and law enforcement. But that's how that works, so it doesn't lapse. It doesn't just go away.
So the short answer is we're safe?
Yes.
Okay, all right, then what? I just wanted to make sure.
Sorry.
I knew where you were headed.
Okay. Old business, we have none. New business, we have our budget mod 11.
Mr. Chairman, the majority of Mod 11 is tweaking some grants and some carryover funds on the mod side. However, there's a significant amount of grants that's coming on, 8.2 million worth of grants coming in authority or being reported on this, with the larger ones being the Head Start program and Family Preservation Support carryover. We also have Community Anti-Drug Network grant of 1.2 million and the Economic Stimulus OJTNEG, on-the-job training. I'm not really sure what the rest of that is. It has an $850,000 grant increase. A lot of these dollars right here that are coming into the grant process this late in the fiscal year, you can expect to see those in a reporting. I would expect to see these in October and November as grant reporting items that probably didn't make the comprehensive budget because these numbers weren't available when they did their comprehensive budget. So we're going to see repeats on these, is what I'm saying, early in the next fiscal year.
Okay. Do I hear a motion for budget mod 11's approval?
So moved.
Okay. Councilor Hostin.
I have a question. The question goes to donation contributions, but it's related to the budget mod. I know the next meeting we'll do donations contributions. Those are already, and it's been updated. Next month, will we do a donations and contributions? And if so, because at that point we can exhaust whatever's left in the funds. Is that, and I pose that to you if you know, or
Ma'am,
Go ahead. Yes.
only to the extent that the principal chief concurs, because there won't be it'll be too late for pursuant to normal appropriation process.
then can I ask a question of Paula?
Okay.
In as much as our next donations and contributions will happen after our final ENF for the year, can you let me and any of the other councils know ahead of time what the administration's position is? Because I've got a couple that's going to be submitted. If they're rejected by the administration, I'm going to amend the budget mod for next month to get them that way. I just want to make sure it's understood.
Absolutely.
Well, that's in there is where I was trying to get to. Next month is September.
Is that too late to
We
do?
won't have a budget mod next month
Okay.
because we won't have a full council to affect that legislation.
All right. If that's, well, okay, then
This is the last ENF committee that can take something and actually appropriate it through September full council and get it in this fiscal year.
let me ask Paula this. I have two applications that are going to be forthcoming. Can you tell me before the next council meeting whether the chief will approve them or not? I'll get them to you just as quick as I can. because if he won't, then I'll try to amend this budget model on the floor.
I'm sure if we submit the request to the principal chief, he will act quickly on it.
Okay, so I'll work on that, mindful that I'll go on the floor if I have to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Pastor Jordan.
So, Doug, I just want to make sure I understand. The way we have this donation thing working now, you really need to zero out the account before September.
Yep, if you don't, it just goes back into the general fund next year as part of carryover, whatever that's the term.
So just
Doesn't carry over.
Just a thought here, it took 6 months to get it started and we can't use the last month of September. So we better hope that nobody wants any or has any needs except about 5 months out of the year. Because that's all that seems to be working. You know, I've been very upset with this process because we felt like we were forced to zero out by March, and then we, at the last minute, were able to change the rules, but many of us didn't have money left to carry us through to the next 6 months for our constituents. And I just want to go on record, I just don't think this thing worked. Didn't work at all. But, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other discussion on the budget model? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So, announcements?
I got a question for Doug. And Doug, I got a question real quick. Was our bridge, next year's budget, I was looking at the book, was the bridge fund or something affected or cut or something for next year?
The 2011, next year's budget, the proposal, you want to talk about next year's?
Yeah,
that
was
bridge
it cut,
fund?
is what, I want to make sure I'm reading it right.
It's being proposed for y'all to consider a reduction of funding in the bridge. I believe about in half.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Paul, I recognize you.
Thank you so much. I come to the committee today bearing gifts from the principal chief, but since we have our honorable Secretary of State here, I'd like her to present. Honorary Secretary of State.
Just
Melanie, you're recognized.
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman, I won't be long with you, but this book has been a work in progress for many years. It started as a book of art forms for Southeast art, and specifically Cherokee art. And once it was a collaborative between the chief, Benny Smith, and Renard Strickland. And when they got into looking at Cherokee art, they realized that Cherokees didn't do art for art's sake, but that it turned much into a lifeways description about why were the designs meaningful to Cherokees and what did they represent in terms of our values and lifeways.
There you go.
So not only does this represent designs that are uniquely Cherokee, and that were different from Southeast designs, but it talks about Cherokee lifeways and how that's very meaningful to the Cherokee people. So Chief wanted each of you to have a copy of this book. It's going to go on sale in the gift shop for just under $30, so it's pretty affordable for people who might also want additional copies of it. We'll also be providing it to all the JOM schools to be in their library so that they can use it for cultural education purposes. So there'll be a book signing ceremony, and we'll get out that information to you all, and that'll be in Catoosa if you didn't already get an invitation to that. So we're at Bill John. We're at Jack. I've got one. Did we get all the way around?
That's yours, Julie.
That's yours? Did we get there?
Well,
Okay.
people missed it. So
These are Brad Jones, right?
All right.
Melanie, can you take these back and get them signed?
Certainly. If you'd like for me to get them signed by Mr. Strickland. I think they're going to be here for the book signing, though, so truly, if you do want to hold them.
Okay. Well, we appreciate it very much. Okay.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Donations and
Donations and contributions, as soon as we can switch over the other, because it should be brief.
Paula, Joe, and Brad did not get a bonus. They're not here.
Doug Evans took them. For them.
So as soon as
Joe
you
and
switch
Brad.
over, we'll start
Yes.
another.
We had 17.
I think you turned them into Gail.